Justin Baldoni's team has issued a response in opposition to dismiss the New York Times.
How the New York Times actively vouched for the veracity of its false narrative.
We actually want all evidence to come out that's proper and appropriate evidence.
So we kind of knew this was coming, didn't we? The collusion argument.
I looked through every document, every email, every text message.
You guys were complicit here. You guys were involved in this every step of the way.
What if everything you thought you knew about Blake Lively was about to come crashing down? Picture this. A Hollywood scandal so wild it's got lawsuits flying, a media giant backtracking, and a director fighting to clear his name. We're diving into the messy showdown between Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni, a story that started with big accusations and ended up exposing way more than anyone bargained for. Stick around because the twists here are unreal.
That's the whole point of a lawsuit, is you just start with allegations, and allegations are not evidence. They're just statements of fact that help establish this is the claim that I'm bringing.
Look, there's a lot of factual determinations that need to be made here, not legal determinations. And because there's factual determinations, you got to leave it to the jury. You got to give a jury the property.
Yeah, exactly. And so they're just saying, look, just let the facts decide. And the trier of fact in any case is going to be the jury. Unless it's a bench trial, then it's a judge. But this is not. This is a jury trial.
There's some bad things that happen here.
It all kicked off when Blake Lively dropped some heavy claims against Justin Baldoni, her co-star and director on It Ends With Us. Sexual harassment, body shaming, even accusations about breastfeeding issues. On paper, it sounded like a textbook case for outrage. Blake painted herself as the victim, and at first, it looked like she had the perfect setup to win over the public. Sympathy was practically guaranteed, but something didn't add up, and the cracks started showing fast.
They hired, meaning the Wayfair parties, hired a crisis PR manager who orchestrated a smear campaign against Lively. It wouldn't surprise me if that's what we see, but I do have to say that the arguments in this opposition were really good. Reynolds and Lively wanted Wayfair to issue a statement taking the blame for Lively's bad press.
Baldoni's team drops a massive $400 million suit on Blake and a lawsuit against the New York Times. Then they publish 170 pages of perfectly documented texts and emails between all the parties that basically show Blake to be the aggressor. Here's the proof.
Then came the game changer. In December 2024, the New York Times threw its weight behind Blake with a piece called "We Can Bury Anyone Inside a Hollywood Smear Machine." It wasn't just an article, it was a full-on video exposé, making her allegations sound like gospel. For a minute, Blake's team must have thought they'd struck gold. The Times, with its decades of prestige, gave her story a shiny stamp of legitimacy. Who wouldn't buy it? Except that support came with a hidden catch that would soon blow up in their faces.
Yeah, and again, at the same time, Nathan assembled a team that could dominate social media through full social account takedowns by starting threads of theories and...
Hold that thought.
Here we go. Generally working to change the narrative. So it's impossible to know how much they planted and how much of it originated organically. Well, wait a minute. You're making a factual assertion that these people did something, seizing on it and amplifying it.
This suit against the New York Times is hard. Here is the clip in question. Now, this video
filed on Friday.
Thank you to Citizen Journalist for putting it on easily accessible. This was part of the article.
Enter Brian Freedman, Justin Baldoni's legal bulldog, who wasn't about to let this slide. He hit back hard, filing an opposition to dismiss the Times from the case and dropping a 170-page bombshell of texts, emails, and documents. This wasn't just a defense, it was a total reversal. Justin's team didn't just deny Blake's claims, they turned the spotlight on her, showing a trail of evidence that painted a very different picture. And what it revealed was jaw-dropping.
A campaign to tarnish Lively after she alleged that Justin Baldoni, her co-star and director, and Jamie Heath, the producer, had engaged in misconduct while shooting the film.
And that's what the New York Times is coming back and saying, look, we're not Blake Lively. We're not the ones making the allegation. We're just fairly reporting on what Blake is suing Justin and Wayfair for.
They decided not to run it for fear of defamation, I'm sure, for fear of you and defamation. So they didn't run it. But some of these TikTokers have done it.
Here's the kicker. Blake's case had no meat on its bones. No incriminating messages, no damning documents, nothing to back up her explosive accusations. Justin's team dug through everything and found a big fat zero. What started as a potential Hollywood reckoning morphed into a flimsy script that wouldn't even pass a screenwriting class. Every time Blake's lawyers tried to stand their ground, it sank like quicksand. But the real twist was who else got tangled up in this mess.
He mocked Baldoni in the process. He said, it's an effed up bad situation with what Baldoni, whatever his name is doing.
If they would have said, Blake alleges that, or according to Blake, blah, 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 this happened, they'd be protected. But they said, and her title is investigative journalist. So she's investigative journalist for the New York Times. So that is implying that she's done an investigation. She's actually looked in this. We can trust her.
Freedman didn't stop at Blake. He took aim at the New York Times itself. He argued they weren't just reporting, they were pushing a narrative. The Times framed Blake's claims as verified truth, not allegations, crossing a line from journalism into advocacy. Freedman even accused them of actual malice, knowing the story was shaky but running it anyway. And the timing, suspiciously rushed, dropped right before Christmas 2024 with barely a heads up to Justin's side. It was a sucker punch disguised as news. And then the jurisdiction fight took it to another level.
The New York Times have looked into it, and this is what really happened. So now they're stating as a fact, not as an opinion, that this happened, and that's how they're going to get into trouble.
It admittedly based its article and video on its reporter's review of thousands of pages of documents and expressly credited Lively's claims, framing them as having been verified by the New York Times' own investigation. If they're supposed to be the bastion of journalism, right? But, if they had just said it's the opinion, would this have mattered? Will this factor in the fact that they did seemingly have this for months due to the metadata and things that we're seeing?
Freedman's next move was pure strategy. He demanded the case stay in California, not New York. Why? California's defamation laws are tougher, offering bigger payouts for reputations trashed in the entertainment capital. Justin and his Wayfarer Studios crew live and work in Hollywood. Any damage to their image hits hardest there. The New York Times might have sparked the fire from afar, but the fallout burned brightest in Cali. Freedman's playing for keeps, and it's a brilliant chess move. Meanwhile, Blake's team started to crack under the pressure.
And so now they're saying hey, we tried to fact check. We gave you the opportunity. Oh, you didn't respond. Oh, if you would have responded, we would have maybe thought of things differently. But hey, we just went with what we had, so we can't be sued. So this is what they're doing. So here's why he's suing them. It's super creative. They said, evening of December 20th, hey, Justin, here's all this horrible stuff we're going to print about you. You have until tomorrow at noon. We'd love to hear your response. He engages with them. He says, okay. And New York Times prints a story prior to noon with the partial information. And my guess is they were worried another outlet was going to hit this story.
Chaos erupted in Camp Lively. Her lawyer, Merle Conant, bailed after realizing the case was a sinking ship. Blake's PR squad, once all about justice, scrambled to keep her image intact as the evidence dried up. Whispers even started swirling about Ryan Reynolds pulling strings behind the scenes, and some say Blake leaned on her pal Taylor Swift to sway the narrative. True or not, the rumors only fueled the fire. With every new leak, her legal dream team looked more like a house of cards in a windstorm. So, where does this leave Blake now?
We're talking about the Wayfarer parties over here, and it to me makes it sound like the Wayfarer parties did that. And again, if that's the case, if you think that happened, investigate it. Do a series of articles. Let's see it. It's not unlikely. I think there's a high degree of likelihood that the court probably, on one of the arguments, and maybe it's the group pleadings, but will grant the 12b6 motion and ask Baldoni's side to amend the complaint.
Chaos erupted in Camp Lively. Her lawyer, Merle Conant, bailed after realizing the case was a sinking ship. Blake's PR squad, once all about justice, scrambled to keep her image intact as the evidence dried up. Whispers even started swirling about Ryan Reynolds pulling strings behind the scenes, and some say Blake leaned on her pal Taylor Swift to sway the narrative. True or not, the rumors only fueled the fire. With every new leak, her legal dream team looked more like a house of cards in a windstorm. So, where does this leave Blake now?